With your basketball as well as your footy, I bet your mum spent a fair bit of time driving you around as a kid.
Funny enough, she was the reason I got into basketball. I said I'd only play if she was my coach. She thought, well, that's fine, we'll go start our own team, and saw the rest was history. So under 10s all the way through to when I left the AAS and under 16s, she was my basketball coach. She followed me all the way through.
So how did she feel about the fact that you inevitably, in the end, chose footy?
Yeah, she was a bit reluctant. Obviously, she was obviously supportive because she's my mother. But when I gave her the call, said I'm seriously considering making a switch to footy. She was pretty nervous, but she was very supportive in the end, and it worked out for the best.
It's turned out okay.
Yeah, so far so good. Yeah.
Did she have a favourite saying when you were a kid?
Just have fun. That was her thing. Was just have fun and enjoy it. And it was always good luck, sweetie. And then after the game, it was always great job, sweetie. Didn't matter if I had 10 touches or 20 touches, or if I scored 2 points or 40 points. It was always either bad luck, sweetie, or great job, sweetie.
What do you remember from the first time that she was diagnosed with cancer? What do you remember about that day?
I was actually coming off probably one of the biggest highs as an athlete. I'd spent 2 years at the Australian Institute of Sport and had just been to my first under-19 World Championship, so coming off probably one of the best couple of weeks of my life. And then Dad called me and told me the news, and yeah, I was a bit shocked. I was pretty angry, to be honest. And it was one of those things that you'd see pink everywhere. You'd see people and friends and family diagnosed with breast cancer, but until it affects you, you're sort of oblivious to it. So I just remember just anger and just unknown, because I just didn't know what to expect or what was going to happen.
What were you angry about?
I was just angry that it's her. I mean, anyone's been through it. It's one of those things. It's just, she's such a beautiful woman. She's healthy. She was an athlete all her life. She didn't smoke, didn't really drink a whole lot. So just one of those things. I was just angry that the fact that it was her and why it was happening now when everything was going so well. Once it spreads, secondary breast cancer, that's it. Unfortunately, there's no cure and no way to get that to go away. So it was just about, for her, having a quality of life. She always lived in the now, lived in the present, and she was so stubborn, and she was just going to ignore the statistics, and she was going to live for as long as she could. And yeah, I just remember at the time it was a shock, and it was upsetting and disappointing, because for a year, you know, we'd celebrated the fact that she'd beaten it and everything was going so well. But once it came back a second time, it's just, yeah, it was a real shock and real disappointment, probably real sadness as well.
Do you remember how you felt when you first heard the word incurable?
It's a sickening feeling. It's just a sinking feeling. Again, so many questions, because incurable can be, she could pass away next week, she could pass away in a month, she could pass away she lived for like 5 or 6 years afterwards. So for me, it was just about getting some clarity. But again, you can't get that clarity because you just don't know how the body's going to respond to the medication, how she's going to go, how she's going to feel, what's her will to live. And so for me, I had so many questions again. She said to us that she wasn't going to feel sorry for herself, and she was going to get out and do all these things that we might not have ever done. If she might have never got cancer, and she might have sat behind a desk until she was 60, never got to do these things. I'm sure if she had the choice, she would have done that. But she didn't let cancer define her in that way. When she found out that it was incurable the second time, she's like, well, that's it. I've got this. She used to call it her bucket list. That she wanted to tick as many things off as she could.
What was on it?
Oh man, she ticked so many. She had to just keep updating it. She obviously was traveling the States. She went to the Mentawis. We paid off the house. She bought a new car, toured all around Australia with a caravan.
Happy as a pig in poo. She's with a boy in Brum.
She just kept having to add more and more things to this list. And that's one of those things. She set goals for herself, and I think that's why she was able to keep going.
Was watching her son play in an AFL Grand Final on her bucket list?
When I made it to footy, and when I made my debut, it's actually almost a date in a couple of weeks' time, and I made my debut, was probably the proudest moment, her proudest moment as well. And then playing in the Grand Final and her being there for it was certainly the cherry on top. Obviously, it wasn't the result that we wanted, but to share that moment, I remember the preliminary final, she was bawling her eyes out after the game, which is pretty cool. But the Grand Final was pretty special too. I took it really hard when we lost. It was because that was going to be the lasting memory of her seeing me play sport. We obviously under 10s all the way through to where I am today. It was a lot of highlights and a lot of great memories, and we pretty much were a family revolved around sport, and that's where our fondest memories have come from. So to the last memory to be one of the worst memories ever was heartbreaking. That's probably why I took it really tough, and she took it pretty tough as well. But again, it was bad luck, sweetie. Good job, sweetie. In the rooms after the game. So in the notes that she left me, she was pretty proud, no matter what the result was.
What were the notes?
It was a lot of pride, a lot of taking care of Dad and Jose, and a lot of her stories and memories that she remembered, and I try to reflect on them a fair bit and read them a fair bit, which is nice. And she's happy that obviously the person that we've become and the family that we have, and talked about all the memories that we shared and travels and all that sorts of things, and all the shopping that we used to do, pancakes we used to eat, all those sorts of things. It was just about how proud she is of us and the man that I've been fortunate enough to become, and obviously wouldn't be in the position that I'm in now if it wasn't for her.
So it's a couple of weeks after the grand final. You've gone to the States thinking that things were okay.
Yeah.
And you get a phone call.
I'd planned a note and I'd planned all these things that I wanted to say, and I pretty much spent that 14 hours on the flight writing everything that I wanted to get out when I spoke to her when I got home. So that's pretty much what I did for 14 hours, and fortunate enough I was able to say, and she was able to hear and listen to everything that I had to say, which was, 25 years worth of memories and things to talk about, and you want to put it into 5 or 10 minutes of a letter and a note that you read out to her wasn't easy. Dad was really at peace, and he and Mum had a really good chat before I got home, and when I was able to get everything off my chest, everything I wanted to say, and she was able to listen and help me a lot.
Was there anything in particular that you wanted to say?
I just remember thanking her for every single little thing. I just kept repeating myself, kept thanking her for everything she'd done for me, and how proud I was of her for doing what she did and getting through what she got through. And
I imagine you've had to deal with this for a really long time, but nothing actually prepares you for that moment.
Nah, the perception is, when it happens, it's quite peaceful and if anyone that's been through it, it's really not. It's really confronting. It's not great seeing someone go through that. And that's probably what shook me up the most, was seeing her go through what she went through. I remember initially when she passed, I was really sad and really angry, but I was almost, as sickening as to say, I was sort of relieved, and I think Dad was relieved, Josie was relieved, just that the last couple of days had come to a rest, and I know that she didn't want to be remembered for being in bed and being sick like that. She wanted to be remembered for being active, travelling the world, getting out, going shopping. So hard as it is to say, it was almost a relief in seeing her not have to go through what she was going through again anymore.
Imagine a footy club was pretty supportive for you, and you got that round one goal, which was pretty special, and that was your tribute to your mum.
I just remember it happening so fast, and I never really thought about how I was going to react or what I was going to do, but I don't know, just naturally pointed to the sky and pointed to her, and it was weird. I just felt myself having a chat to her on the bench and just sort of looking up and thanking her again. All I did was I used to thank her a lot, and that's what I spent that moment doing.
Why did you want to tell your story today? What do you want to get out of this? A
little bit of closure, personally. It's one of those things that you want to talk about, but you can't talk about, if that makes sense. So many things are the reasons that I'm sitting here today and telling you my story, but certainly the main one would be just to raise awareness and to not feel sorry for yourself, and to get out there and live life. Her quote was to make every second count, and she well and truly did that, and that's what I'm trying to live like, and that's what my dad and my sister are trying to do, and everyone that Mum knew and now living the same way. So she affected and touched a lot of people living that way, and I'm proud of what she was able to do.
Thank you for being so open and honest. I really appreciate it, and you've put together a remarkable career already, going from basketball to footy and doing what you've done, and knowing that you've done it with that much going on in the background. Well done, and thank you for being so honest today.
No, thank you for your help.
This has been a Fox Sports production.